Good morning, everyone. My name is Enrique Sanchez. I am the Intermountain State Director with the American Business Immigration Coalition. I'd like to welcome you today on behalf of both the Arizona Coalition for the American Dream and the American Business Immigration Coalition. The Arizona Coalition is a member of the National Coalition for the American Dream, an organization of business leaders supporting deferred action for childhood arrivals, also known as DACA recipients, and pursuing a bipartisan permanent legislative solution for Dreamers. ABIC is a bipartisan coalition of over 1,200 CEOs and business owners across the country, from Texas to Maine and Arizona to Florida. Joining us today are Senator Bob Worsley, former Republican member of the Arizona State Senate, founder of SkyMall and ABIC co-chair, Lorenzo Sierra, Arizona State Representative, District 19, J. Doug Pruitt, retired chairman and CEO of Sunt Construction, Jose Patiño, Director of Education and External Affairs for Aliento, and Rebecca Shee, Executive Director of ABIC. Today, we are pleased to release a letter signed by 70 business, civic, and faith leaders from across Arizona, which was delivered to the offices of Senator Kristen Sinema and Mark Kelly earlier today, urging them to champion immigration solutions in the budget reconciliation bill in order to address our labor shortage and rising inflation, and give immigrant workers and their employers the stability that they need. This letter comes on the heels of several others being sent to Congress and the White House from business leaders across industries and across the country, including 2 national letters from the construction and broadband industry and from the healthcare sector, released in the past week. Immigrants are here to work and are already making vital contributions to our economy and to communities around the country. I believe I am an example of that. My family and I immigrated to the United States in 2000 when I was only 2 years old. I've lived my entire life in the United States, and I am a DACA recipient and a dreamer. Since I was 8 years old, I dreamt of joining law enforcement. I was disappointed to learn that because of my immigration status, I am barred from becoming a police officer. A pathway to citizenship would remove barriers that stand in my and many other dreamers' way of achieving our dreams. DACA has provided me and several other 1,000 young adults opportunities to continue higher education and contribute to this country, our country. Every day across the country, nearly 2 million young people with and without DACA are denied opportunities to contribute and protect our communities, economy, and country. DACA recipients are in all 50 states. We are your friends, your neighbors, your employees, your co-workers, and your classmates. While we may not be American on paper, we are American in every other way. I would now like to introduce our co-chair, Senator Bob Worsley, founder of SkyMall and former Republican member of the Arizona State Senate. Welcome.
Thank you, Enrique. I was recruited in 2012 to run for the Arizona Senate seat in the Arizona State Senate seat in Mesa, Arizona, to defeat Russell Pierce. Russell was running many anti-immigrant bills for almost a decade. And as my religious upbringing and my religious callings dictated, when I was recruited to help defeat him, I found it compelling. And I served for 3 terms in the Arizona Senate, during which time, the last 10 years, we haven't had one additional anti-immigrant bill pass. And in fact, this last year, the Senate and the House approved and the governor signed the bill to allow the voters to decide to undo the Dreamer ban for in-state tuition. So I'm passionate about this. We're here today because the time for immigration reform is now at the federal level. And our Arizona senators are key to getting this done and being successful. We urge them to champion the House-passed immigration work permits for 7.1 million undocumented immigrants, including 2 million Dreamers, 500,000 immigrants with TPS status, temporary protected status, and an estimated 4.2 million essential workers, including more than 500,000 farm workers. The Senate parliamentarian is a hired advisor to the Democrats and to the Senate. As a CEO, I hire people to give me advice. I accept good advice. I reject bad advice. But at the end of the day, I'm the final decision maker. If the parliamentarian advises against the House work permits, our elected leaders, our senators, have the power and the responsibility to disregard her opinion and finally give a path to citizenship to our hardworking immigrants. The Democrats must not slow walk this process. They have an obligation to move this forward as well. I call on Senator Schumer and Senator Durbin to ensure that the parliamentarian release her advice as soon as possible and move forward. ABIC has worked hard for a bipartisan deal on immigration, meeting with 41 Republican senators to try to come to some kind of bipartisan agreement. Despite words of support offered in private, we were not able to find a path. The urgency is clear. Our nation faces an acute labor shortage. The US economy has almost 11 million job openings. Arizona has almost 200,000 job openings. These temporary provisions and longer-term solutions will help ease this shortage. The benefits are undeniable. The household income of Arizona's undocumented immigrants is $5.1 billion per year. They pay $500 million in taxes each year, and their total spending power is $4.5 billion annually. They are Arizonans, they are Americans in every way except their documented status. There is a bipartisan popular support for action. According to a recent ABIC poll, 4 out of 5 Arizona voters support a pathway to earn citizenship for Dreamers, TPS holders, farm workers, and essential workers within the reconciliation bill. That's 4 out of 5 voters. That includes a majority of Trump supporters, with 61%, 58%, and 50% of the 2020 Trump voters backing a pathway to citizenship for Dreamers, farm workers, and essential workers, respectively. This action is urgently needed to address the acute labor shortage across the state. Legalization and pathways to citizenship will help ease our labor shortage. Common sense immigration solutions will increase economic activity by $121 billion annually, including adding $31 billion per year to federal, state, and local tax revenues. This is economically crucial. It's politically smart, and it's morally right. In Arizona, we value immigrants as workers, neighbors, fellow human beings worthy of dignity and respect, and our fellow church members. They work hard, they pay taxes, and they contribute to our state's economy. We cannot let this opportunity fall away or slip away. Our nation cannot afford it, and neither can Arizona. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. I would now like to introduce Lorenzo Sierra, Arizona State Representative, District 19.
Good morning. I am coming to you from Legislative District 19. I am parked in my car and looking forward to a wonderful holiday season. Now, depending on the news source that you are looking at, you might think that the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse are mounting up in Yuma, Arizona as we speak. It is part of the rhetoric that we hear in this very important immigration debate. And as Senator Worsley so aptly put forth, the economics of our dreamers and of our immigrant community is undeniable. Now, there are many in Arizona's political world that will use immigration as a cheap and easy way to circumvent the fact that they don't have real ideas, and they will demonize immigration and immigrants in the process. But Arizona has always been and should always be the place where immigration solutions are fostered. We have a rich history of people who have come forth to bring forth solutions. Recently, there was a Senate Gang of 8, which included Arizona's 2 Republican senators, Jeff Flake and the late John McCain. We have a rich history that I hope Senators Kelly and Sinema will take up. We have the ability and the will to do this. we are calling on Senators Kelly and Sinema to join the House in passing some immigration reform that is much needed, and to also have folks support the upcoming ballot initiative that is for once going to right a mistake that happened a few years ago and is going to allow for DREAM Act students the ability to pay in-state tuition. Now, I will close by saying I was extremely moved recently when I heard a young dreamer speak. It was his lifelong dream to attend Arizona State University, the Barrett College where two of my kids attended. He wanted to be there so badly. However, he could not make it financially. In the end, he had to settle, in his words, to attend an Ivy League school. Arizona, we cannot let that level of talent leave our community. We must pass comprehensive immigration reform, and I'm calling on Senators Kelly and Senator Sinema to please take the lead on this issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative Sierra. Please join me in welcoming Mr. J. Doug Pruitt, retired chairman and CEO of Sun Construction.
Thank you, Enrique. My name is Doug Pruitt, and I'm the former chairman and CEO of Sun Construction. Sun is an Arizona-based construction company. We have about 11 offices throughout the country. We are primarily involved in three market segments. We do large commercial and institutional building work for universities, healthcare, industry. We have a heavy highway and civil division, which does roads, bridges, airports, and large pipelines. We have an industrial division, which does sewage and water treatment plant. We do a lot of industrial work for the mines and also for the power companies. We, like everyone else I know in this industry, are suffering from a severe shortage of a workforce. The construction industry currently relies on about 300,000, or we're short about 300,000 skilled craft workers just to do the work that is there for us to do today. That's not to meet the demands that hopefully come our way because of the passage of the infrastructure bill. We also are reliant on about 135,000 DACA and TPS protected immigrants, and those are temporary. So we could lose those at any time. If we lost the DACA and TPS immigrants, protected immigrants, we would be short as an industry about 25% of the workforce that we need just to do the work imposed on us today. Labor shortages, when you have labor shortages on projects, it increases the cost of doing work because it elongates the construction because of delays. That increases the cost for both our public sector and private sector customers. In the public sector, that would require more tax dollars to build the same amount of assets, or you would have fewer assets because you don't have the money to pay for those projects. In the private sector, it makes our private sector customers less competitive, especially in a global economy. Those costs go up, and ultimately they're passed on to the customer. That's our citizens. They're the ones who pay the price of this inflation. Same way with the housing industry, which we're not in. As cost of housing goes up, it makes it more difficult for people to own a home, but those costs are passed on again to the citizens who bear that cost. We have failed to adequately address this subject of immigration for decades, and we continue to ignore it for some reason. And it's getting to where it's creating a whole host of problems relative to the shortages of workforce, but it's creating a lot of anger and hatred, which makes this even more difficult to address. And it's time for this country to deal with this subject. And Congress needs to have the courage to do what's right. We need to have a mechanism for undocumented immigrants to have a pathway to citizenship, and we can begin to solve this problem. So I call on our two senators to have the courage to step up and do what is right for America and pass this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pruitt. We now welcome Mr. Jose Patiño, Director of Education and External Affairs for Aliento. Welcome.
Thank you for having me here. Thank you for Senator Bob Worsley for the efforts that he has done for the state of Arizona, as well as Representative Lorenzo Sierra, who has advocated for immigrants, DACA recipients like myself here for decades, and to the Coalition for the American Dream and their efforts here in collaboration with ABIC. As Enrique mentioned, I'm representing Aliento. Aliento is a nonprofit organization here in the Phoenix area. We work with undocumented DACA students and mixed immigration status families. So a lot of the work that we're talking about is people who we see on a daily basis. I am myself a DACA recipient. And as mentioned earlier, it's been a frustrating, now 35 years since the last immigration reform was passed in 1996 by then President Reagan. As Representative Sierra mentioned, we have been blessed with Senator John McCain and Senator Jeff Flake, as well as former Senator John Kyle, on their ability and conviction and courage to take on immigration as a leading issue. Currently, we have two Democratic senators, Senator Kristen Sinema and Senator Mark Kelly, and we're asking them to take that leadership to make sure to follow in the footsteps that our previous senators have done. The DACA program by itself has created a lifeline like myself. With the DACA program, I was able to continue my studies. I was able to finish my master's degree in secondary education. I was able to join Teach for America and become a high school teacher in the West Phoenix area. I was able to buy a home, and I'm able to work here at Aliento and foster this organization. So for us, we know that ultimately we want comprehensive immigration reform, but based on the political calculation, the political atmosphere and the environment, we know that we have to take it one step at a time. And right now, what it seems like is possible, also within polling and just conversation, it's can we get something that we could all agree on, which in this case would be Dreamers and TPS holders. So for us, we're asking our two senators, Senator Kelly and Senator Sinema, to support the humanitarian parole that is talked about, that passed in the House. And if that is not possible, they would support HR 6 and make sure that comes up for a vote. For us, it's critical that we have some path forward. We know that DACA is in the courts, that potentially be taken away. And again, it's been, while I'm blessed to have the DACA program, it could be frustrating to keep renewing and waiting every 2 years, especially if you have children, which depend on you. And therefore, at the end of the day, you just want a solution, whether it's through a parliamentarian, through budget reconciliation, whether it's a standalone legislation. Ultimately, all we're looking for is solutions so we can contribute and get back to this great country who has given us so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Jose. Please welcome Rebecca Shee, Executive Director of the American Business Immigration Coalition.
Great. Thank you so much, Enrique. I'm going to ask all of our panelists to turn on your camera. We're going to do a Q&A with members of the press. And if you're a member of the press, please submit your question in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, or you can submit it directly to our press director. Jose, can you turn on your camera as well? Oh, sorry, I see you. Okay. Oh, yes, and the representative. Okay, so the first question that we have is, if the current proposal passes, how will it help address labor shortage and inflation in various industries in Arizona? I will kick it over to Mr. Pruitt. Would you like to answer this first?
Yes, thank you. In the case of the construction industry, obviously we have, like everyone else is experiencing, a huge shortage. In our case, we're federal contractors, so everyone we hire in construction goes through EB-5, so we do not have undocumented workers. If you can get the workforce that's out there and available in some form of a citizenship or a pathway to citizenship, so they are now documented and able to work in our economy, then we can start filling this gap of shortages. If we're able to do that, and we're going to have to do some training and things with that as well. There's an issue there that's a whole nother subject. But as we can get this workforce in and trained, then the construction delays I talked about begin to diminish. And all of a sudden, the cost associated with those delays diminishes as well. And that will begin to reduce the cost of inflation, to reduce the cost to our customers in the public and private sector. So it's not rocket science. It's just things that people need to do. And we're so far behind this curve, it's mind-numbing to me. So we just need to have the courage to step up and do what's right for America.
Thank you so much. Senator Worsley or Representative, would you like to address that as well?
I think Doug has nailed it, but if you have 10, 11 million jobs open in the country and we can do the House proposal alone, that's 7 million people that cannot with an E-Verify come to work for Doug today at Sun Construction. Suddenly those people are available and would immediately start to fill the job shortage that we have in this country. Today, those people are trying to do what they can. They might be doing some housework. They might be mowing some lawns, something where someone doesn't do an E-Verify check on them to get a job. Good jobs are available to them once they have this status that the House is recommending and passed. So that 7 million people would go a long way to solving our unemployment, the labor shortage that we have in this country.
Representative Sierra?
It's hard to add on what Doug just mentioned. He's spot on. The jobs are there. They need to be filled. And even more so, when you look at the jobs in the agriculture world, those are jobs that, for all intents and purposes, most Americans are not going to fill those jobs. And we depend on our immigrant community to take those jobs to help put food literally onto our tables. So yes, the sooner we can get this done, the sooner we can make sure that we are decreasing inflation. We are making sure that our economy is humming along as best it can.
Great. Thank you so much, Representative. So the second question is, I'm going to give it to Jose first, is that if in-state tuition, the ballot initiative is able to pass in Arizona, what would this mean to your students?
Yes, thank you. Currently, about 2,000 students who are undocumented or DACA recipients graduate every year from Arizona high schools. The state of Arizona invests about $125,000 K-12. And afterwards, it basically closes the doors in terms of having access to post-secondary education. So that's just this graduating class. If we look at the total number of students, it's about 65,000 students who will benefit. We know that, give or take the numbers, about over $600,000 they would pay back if they finish their bachelor's degree in state and local taxes to the state of Arizona. So what this would do is we have right now thousands, tens of thousands of students who want to be able to get back to Arizona, because Arizona is a beautiful state, and get back to their communities. And one of the things that's stopping them is continuing their education. And having the access to in-state tuition and having the access to those public scholarships is going to allow them, like allow myself, to be able to go back into school. I'm the first one in my family to get a college education, the first one to do a lot of things. And I know how that changed my life. But now my older siblings are actually back in school, and they're returning back. So for me, I know that breaks a cycle, not only within your family, but with also your circle of friends. Because one of the things that we know here in the state of Arizona, we need more college graduates.
If I may add on to that, I myself have been able to benefit from in-state tuition in the state of Utah as a DACA recipient, and it made it possible for me to actually attend college. And as the representative said earlier, this bill would help retain the talent in Arizona and keep the talent there to continue the progress. This in no way is a handout to undocumented immigrants or DACA recipients. It is simply leveling the playing field. And as mentioned by Jose, these are Arizona high school graduates who would just receive in-state tuition, no form of handout.
Rebecca, I'd like to comment too, if I can.
Go ahead, Senator. Yep.
Thank you. In 2006, Russell Pierce ran this bill that made it impossible for DACA students to get in-state tuition. It was inhumane. It was terrible. It went to the voters. It was positioned like there was this big, huge run on welfare system in our state by the undocumented community. And the voters marginally voted to put that into the Constitution. It's just wrong. And that effort is what I ran on to defeat, and we stopped that kind of anti-immigrant movement. All the states around us, as Enrique just mentioned, all the states around us do K through 12 education of these undocumented children, and they allow them to go to college as in-state tuition students because the state paid for their K-12 education. It's a logical thing that we would want these kids to be as fully educated as they have the capacity and the desire to do and pay in-state tuition. It's a cruel and unusual thing that Arizona did in 2006, and it's time to rectify that.
Now, if I may, very quickly, and right after this, I have to get into my doctor's appointment, so my apologies. But I would be remiss if I did not give the biggest kudos in the world to 4 Republicans who stood strong when we actually put this Senate resolution onto the House ballot. The House was not going to address this. Michelle Udall and Joel John had the courage to move this through the legislative process in the House. And then when it came up to a vote, Representatives Udall and John voted in favor of it, and were joined by Representatives Cook and Osborne. I saw literally with my eyes their colleagues yelling at them, berating them, and they stood strong, because when you are dealing in the immigration world and you are not on the side of people who are quite literally not on the right side of history, you will be treated poorly. And I just absolutely have to commend those 4 for their courage on voting yes to put DACA, the DACA in-state tuition, onto the November ballot. And hopefully we can have everybody that's watching this support that ballot initiative. Thank you, everybody.
Right. I think that's a wonderful end to our press conference. We are at the half-hour mark. I want to thank all of our panelists and all of the press that have joined us today. And I think that Arizona is a model for the nation, and that we will win immigration reform this year. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. You bet. Our pleasure.